Jamie, what do you think? Do you believe that tweet?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. Good afternoon. Look, I don't want to speculate whether or not the tweet is accurate, but maybe to take a step back and to carry on with what your, and I apologize that I didn't pick up his name, but your other reporter mentioned. I think there's value in being private when there's such a long runway related to developing a new product, a mass market luxury vehicle, and when it seems the market is unwilling on the bear side to sort of capitulate and to give credit where credit is due. I mean, there was a lot of progress in this most recent quarter. They've hit their 5,000 unit per week target. They're making considerable progress on the cash flow side as well. And, all you hear about are bears kind of digging in deeper. And so I think, it doesn't seem like bulls or bears are unwilling to sort of, move off their positions. And that stymies, the entire benefit of being public in our view. So I think there is, an argument you can make, given the growth that they've laid out in the future, the capital needs they're going to have in the future, and the tremendous success they've had to date, which to this point, like I said, hasn't really gotten the credit perhaps it deserves, maybe it does make sense to go private. So I think it's a reasonable assertion to either, to have a discussion around.
Tom, I want to ask you, though, how much of this is to some of those basic fundamentals, massive CapEx needs, a long horizon. Those don't always suit the public market very well. But how much of this comes down to a failure of communicating the story? Because we've saw for years Amazon was able to say, we'll get to our profit when we get to it. Just stay with us. For some reason, Elon Musk has not been able to say, this is a massive undertaking. I need your patience.
Yeah, there's that credibility gap that has happened that, Jeff Bezos had quarter after quarter, year after year of basically saying, I need your patience. This is what I'm able to deliver. I'm able to get those products into people's hands. We are generating billions of sales. We are outstripping the rest of the retail world. In the case of Elon Musk, you've got to get those cars produced, and it is hard to get all of the parts that you need, the supply chain in line, the financing that's needed, the production. It's a very complicated series of things that have to be met. Requirements have to be met in making of a sophisticated luxury automobile and delivering that to the end user. It's a very different dynamic than delivering my toothpaste and my books over the internet. It's a very different dynamic.
Jamie, you say that this could make sense perhaps for Tesla, but realistically, what's the likelihood of it happening? $420 a share could be worth more than $70 billion. Can they afford it?
Yeah, and apologies again, it's Tom, and I think Tom's exactly right in terms of the analogy he brought up on Amazon. I do think that, it's not inconceivable that there is funding out there. There's some very well-funded believers that it's not just in the Model 3 or in this quarter or in next year, but we're, and I don't mean to be sort of too facetious in this regard, but, we're sort of embarking on this electric vehicle revolution. Every other major auto manufacturer on the planet is now committed to electric vehicles. 8 years ago, that wasn't the case. 8 years ago, they disputed whether demand existed for it or not. So the world isn't an if, it's a when we get to sort of this electrified universe. Hybridization may be an intermediary step. But all of the different manufacturers are now committed to this. Tesla, to this point, has, I think, a significant lead and significant advantage on the battery manufacturing side of the business. They're a lot more vertically integrated as it relates to the production side of, the assembly of the vehicles itself. And they go direct to consumers. To this point, distribution is a negative for most OEMs. They've got dealers that aren't sure how to sell EVs, don't want to sell EVs because there's potentially lower service expectations down the road. So there's a lot more considerations, away from Tesla. When you look at it in those terms, it's not hard to see why there's a lot of well-funded sort of futurists out there that can see the true value, much like, probably many people did for Amazon earlier in the 2000s.